Carolyn is under the weather, and so she will not be joining us tonight.
I think wrote her. He's stuck at work, so he won't be here either.
Okay, got it.
Zaylee, are you doing minutes or do you want me to do it again?
No, I'm good to go. Thank you.
I'm going to watch you more carefully this time because you make it look so easy. I don't know how you do it.
Okay, so we called the meeting to order, 6:02. And the first item on the agenda is public comment period. And I'll preface this to say that we have only 5 minutes available on our agenda this evening to handle public comments. Are there any public comments from those in attendance? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is addition of items to the agenda. Are there any items that folks wish to add to the agenda at this time?
I was going to add, this is Jono, I was going to add comments about the meeting which I had planned to attend with the climate change, though I was unable to attend. So I understand that Helen was there. She might have some to contribute if she'd like. And hopefully that will be an ongoing, well, it was stated as a forum, so we'll have to see how it continues, if it continues.
Okay, great. Well, we have that as an item M, I believe it is, Bristol Climate Change Forum. So we can hear from Helen at that once we get to that point on the agenda. Okay. Next item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes from March 10th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion. I didn't write them that time, so I can.
Hey, that's fun. Okay, cool. A second? Okay, was that Nancy?
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, any discussion on those approved minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. I think the ayes carry it. Minutes are approved. Okay. Correspondence. I'm not aware of any correspondence. Zaylee, are you aware of any correspondence we should bring before the group?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Great. Okay, so on to old business, Conservation Commission membership. We actually have 3 members that agreed to be reappointed for 4-year terms, and that's Jono and Alex and Zaylee. There was a vote on that on Mondays during Monday's select board, and Ian just let me know that that vote approved your reappointment. So thank you for serving for another 4 terms, agreeing to serve. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions currently in a 9-member board. So we do have 1 vacant position if anyone knows of folks that might be interested, Bristol residents that might be interested to serve on the Conservation Commission. We missed our annual meeting last March. We normally do it in March. And so tonight is our annual meeting where we actually elect chair, vice chair, and clerk positions for the coming year. And let's see, just checking Carolyn's notes here in case I'm missing anything. Okay, so at this point we can take nominations for chair, vice chair, and clerk for the coming year.
I nominate continuing the existing pattern that we have.
Okay.
Out of simplicity.
I'm happy to go forward with the existing slate. I think it's working very well, and I appreciate all of their efforts.
Thank you,
Okay.
John. You did that more diplomatically than I did.
Uh,
Unless you fell in love with notes, Helen. You could always fall in love with notes.
Nancy, any thoughts?
I think it's working out great and can stay the same.
Okay. I did have a note from Carolyn that she said she would be willing to accept a nomination as chair or vice chair, though she would make a terrible clerk, she says, because she types pretty slowly. So I think if all of us agree, we can take that note as her agreement to serve again as chair. Would anyone like to make a nomination
I'll nominate her for chair.
or a motion, I should say? Perfect.
Okay, I'll make a motion to nominate Carolyn for chair and you for vice chair. Can I do the same at them at the same time, or should I do them separately?
We could probably do those two at the same time, and then we'll have to have a separate
Right, for me.
motion for your position. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I heard that one motion. Is there a second for that motion on the table?
Yeah,
I will second
that.
the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask all in favor of reappointing Carolyn Dash as chair and myself as vice chair for the coming year, say aye.
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 And I'm abstaining. Those voting nay or no? Hearing none, the motion carries. Do I have a separate motion now for Zaley's position? In fact, I will make a motion that we nominate Zaley for clerk position in the coming year. A second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion on the nomination for Zaley as clerk? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of re-electing Zaley Smith as clerk of the Conservation Commission, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, very good. Nice job. Our annual, that was our annual meeting right there. Okay, let's see here. On to the next item of business. Parks update. We can hear from Alex.
All right, there we go. Okay, so parks are doing pretty good, as you imagine. Before Green Up Day and after the snow melts, we have this period of there's just like lots of litter everywhere. And the same is true for the parks. So we're dealing with that. But otherwise, things are looking pretty good. Like the mud season wasn't really terrible for the parking lots. They're in decent shape. So I did have one update on the town green. I had a meeting. Meredith, the rec director, and myself had a meeting with the representative from the Peace Garden Committee group, and basically they just wanted to talk about some ongoing issues that they're having, and just basically what we said was that if they want to like write down all of the things that they're doing, they're just like a volunteer group, right? That they bring in like school groups to help and talk about the Peace Garden and everything. So the result of the meeting was it would be beneficial if they wrote down a bunch of the stuff that they do all the time, so that they can be included in a future town green management plan, potentially, hypothetically, that would come down the line. So I encourage them to reach out to Carolyn if they wanted to get on like the May meeting, for example, which I think they're still planning to do, which would be an opportunity for them to explain to this group sort of what their mission is and what they're looking to do long term down the line. And none of the issues, I should say, that they were coming up with were like urgent or anything. It's just kind of like maintenance and how their maintenance should coincide with the park maintenance. So, you know, like there's the little brick path that goes through the little wedges. And so they're concerned that like there's getting to be like this gap. So the turf kind of like goes in, and they're worried about people slipping basically. So those kind of things, I just suggested they kind of write down what are their concerns and outlook, and then kind of present it to this group so that both groups can be more aware of each other. Yeah. And other than that, pretty much it. I don't have any Eagle Park fishing platform updates.
I have a few of those. Which
Okay. Cool.
But are you all set on the other parts?
Yep. I think we're going to talk about Sycamore Park separately. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, then I'll wait for that. Yep.
Okay. The only update I have on Eagle Park is that we have, let's see, at the select board meeting on March, I believe it was 14th, the select board voted to approve the dock doctor's contract to proceed with leveling of the platform and repair of the brackets. And so that's a 2-phase effort. And so we're on their list of projects for this coming season to do that. But meanwhile, it's fine for us as a commission to proceed with backfilling the holes in the pathway that leading up to the concrete ramp, just to make that area a little more serviceable, a little safer for this coming season. And so I would suggest that maybe we're going to talk about this, well, maybe here we can talk about it. We need to set up a work day at Eagle Park in order to do the mulching of the perennial garden, but perhaps at the same time we can use the pile of SurePack that's already there in the parking area and fill in some of those holes on the approach to the concrete ramp. Any thoughts or concerns about that as a plan from your standpoint, Alex?
No, I think that sounds great. Yeah, that area that you're talking about, Kristen, is only going to get worse unless something gets done to it. So yeah, I would be all
You're
for
talking
that.
about holes in the path that goes down to the dock.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, there's right now as it stands, you have to kind of step up quite a ways to get onto the concrete ramp. So we'd be like leveling that out. It's not.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there are also some repairs that will be funded in part by FEMA, but the process of getting all those approvals and getting engineering bids out or scopes of work out to bid is somewhat delayed. So in the meantime, we can at least make it a little bit serviceable and safer for the summer. So maybe as we talk about the calendar in a future item on the meeting here, we can pick a day that might work for everybody to be there at Eagle Park to do a work day.
And Kristen, did you say the material that's needed to fill in those holes is already there? So
Yeah, fortunately, we have some leftover SurePack from past repairs that should be enough to fill at least the biggest hole there. And if we run out, we can also ask Peaker to deliver a little bit more.
Okay.
Kristen, a question of remembering last year when we had the workday, is this an erosion issue that occurred since last year when we were there, or is it likely to be ongoing at all? What's the status of how it got formed?
The holes are there from the Halloween storm 2019. And so it hasn't been repaired since then because it's been in a holding pattern waiting for FEMA inspections and then FEMA approvals. And because that's taken so long and because of the COVID pandemic as well, So it's not an ongoing erosion issue. It's left over from that one event. But,
All
but
right.
we now have approval to kind of proceed with at least patching it up to make it a little more serviceable as we wait for the more permanent repairs and redesign.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Other park updates beyond those. Okay. The next item is Memorial Park Management Plan. And I can just report that also at the March 14th Select Board meeting, the Select Board discussed our draft management plan and generally endorsed the plan, suggested a few wording changes and items which I need to fix, to make the final draft. One other item was there was a report prepared by Green Mountain Engineering for the Bristol Rec Club, and Porter sent that over to me, has sent that over to me since that Select Board meeting, so I can add in the findings of that brief report, which basically was a quick review of the park to understand if there were feasible designs to make that upper level parking area and the river access a little bit more accessible to ADA or folks that have movement disorders, if they could at least use that upper part of the park. So I'll incorporate that in the management plan, the findings from that, and then it will be sent back to the Select Board for their final approval at a future meeting. Any other thoughts on that? Or maybe other folks were present at that Select Board meeting too and remember more details than I do at this moment.
Yeah, I was there, but I think you covered everything that they mentioned about. Besides, they were effusive in their praise of its sort of thoroughness and detail oriented nature. So they were very happy. That was my take.
Yeah, that's a good point. They kind of approved of that format, if you will, for all the other town parks. So we're moving ahead on those, and including the Eagle Park one, which we'll talk about in the next item. So,
well, Kristen, you did so much work on that, and it was really lovely. Like, it was pleasant to read as a document. Right. So not just factual. So It was, well done, and thank you.
Well, thank you. No, I had a lot of fun putting it together, and history and research is one of my labors of love. So that was fun to do. Thank you, though. Okay, so on that item, I think we're wrapped up. The Eagle Park Management Plan is the next item on the agenda, and I have that plan here, which I can share, hopefully. But first, before I do that, I guess we had this as an item or an assignment from Carolyn to do for our homework in preparation of this meeting. Were there was there anything that anyone would like to bring up as they reviewed the Eagle Park plan, and things that we might have missed or things we should add? Questions on the plan, maybe? Okay. Should I bring it up and share screen and we can briefly zip through it, maybe?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Sure.
Eagle Park Management Plan. Everybody see that?
Yes.
And let me see.
Be able to enlarge it one more size up?
Yeah, is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so this pretty much has the same format as the Memorial Park plan. So there's a general map that orients you to where the location is. There's a general description, talks about recent history. I couldn't recall exactly when this sign for Eagle Park went in, but I will, I can go back through some of the past town reports and see if I can figure that out. That was, I believe, an Eagle Scout project. Ecological setting here, again, we need any volunteers for tree species, and maybe that's something, a task that we can kind of roll into our workday at the park.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the lead on that. I'm sure there's more species in that, but you're right. While we're all there, it'd be fun to just go around real fast, see what.
Yeah,
people do.
definitely. Yeah, and to hear from you, like, I mean, it would be great to hear your methods, how you go about identifying the trees and so forth. That could be a fun activity, right?
I look at the leaves. What do you want to know?
Right? Okay. Wildlife, I did my best. Alex Smith, we'll have to hear from him if this, and from you, Zaley, if this information on fish is good. Let's see. This one was kind of a short and sweet plan because there wasn't a lot of information for this part. But essentially we have some active open space here that gets regular use by, believe it or not, I've seen like Tai Chi classes being held out in the lawn there pretty regularly, but of course it gets heavy use by kayakers and fisher people as well, and the Elder Services sometimes does seated Tai Chi and yoga classes on the platform. So it gets a lot of use. It has some issues, of course, with maintenance and, you know, it's at that, as Roy Schiff would describe it, it's at that sweet spot of creating a very accessible fishing experience for those who are mobility challenged, but also that puts it in a vulnerable spot as well in terms of ice out and flood stage. So of course the mitigation designs for this fishing platform are now including things like breakaway rails that we could remove in anticipation of ice out and then block the path in a secure way to keep people from going out on the platform during those times when the railings are down. And then mitigation design, this is something that's being discussed with FEMA right now, is whether they would pay for a design that would set the a Trex boardwalk on helical piles that would be more resistant to moving in future floods and allow floodwaters to go underneath the Trex boardwalk and not result in the kind of erosion to the walk that we see under the current design. So that's being discussed at this very time in these recent couple of weeks. And we'll hopefully hear more about that at a future meeting. Let's see, other points or issues or questions?
Can I ask you a question about the proposal and the projection for fixing the fishing access?
Yeah.
It sounds like there's still a lot of discussion about what the best strategy is to make that resilient and strong. Once that is decided, and I don't know, I know the engineer, I saw the engineer's presentation and the whole thing about removing the, sorry, I'm blanking for a word, the wall, the railing.
Yeah.
Removing the railing before a storm so that it doesn't catch material coming down. But then there was a lot of discussion at that meeting about, well, you know, who's going to do that? And do town workers have time to do that in addition to doing all their other preparation for a big storm coming? And I wasn't sure that was resolved. So I think my basic question is, are we planning to wait to finish this document when we know what the final plans are? Or is this just a snapshot in time? This is where we are right now.
Yeah, my feeling is it's the latter. It's a snapshot in time, and the condition of the platform is really one element in a long list of park resources and issues and services. And so this is intended to be kind of a living document that gets revisited every few years, just to make sure that we're up to date. And I think this item in particular, the UFP platform, could be revisited in a couple, 3 years once we've resolved how to mitigate for flooding, and determined whether we have FEMA funding sufficient to redesign the
Got it.
platform.
Okay.
But I'm open to others' thoughts on that or discussion on that. Okay. Thank you to Alex for this Emerald Ash Borer stuff. I just pulled this right from the plan, which was kind of cool to see that there's very detailed information about Emerald Ash borer tree or ash conditions on the property. Very cool.
Great.
Yeah, one point real quick. Sorry. I know that can be kind of confusing. So the reason that there's so many concentrated like little circles, yeah, right there, is it's just an ash like tree that has a bunch of longer things growing up. You know what I mean? So it's not like a bunch of ash trees right next to each other. It's all coming from one. They told us to count that as separate.
Okay.
So there's when you go out there and look, it looks like there's fewer than this map would indicate. But yeah, there's like a string of them that are not doing so good. And I know that we don't have access to this, or at least I don't have access to this without asking a bunch of people. But I know that they did put a purple trap at
Cool.
Eagle Park a couple of years ago, and it was on the far right dot, the red dot, that one that's right near the Universal Fishing platform.
Yeah.
So that's one of those spots where it was potentially confirmed.
Oh, cool.
So
I mean, not so cool, but
yeah, right. Yeah, cool, but not cool. Yeah.
cool that we have the data. Yeah. Okay. And trash isn't really a huge problem there. Is that true, Alex?
Yeah, it's not as bad as other places. The parking lot is the biggest, like, culprit of that. But not a big, not like Sycamore Park.
Okay. Let's see. So if we feel like this is in a pretty good spot to forward as a draft to the select board, we could take a vote on that this evening. Or we could certainly spend more time to fill in information that folks think might be pertinent. What's your pleasure on that?
Well, the only thing that had red text, meaning we need more information, is the tree identification.
Right.
And that could just be reworded to say the trees at that site include blankety, blankety, blank. And then later we can go, oh, you do say that. These species include. And then at some point we could do a thorough search and add anything that is not on that list.
Okay.
So it doesn't, what you're saying there is true, that the trees there do include those. We're not saying that there's nothing else. I don't know what Appendix B looks like. Is that just a list of all the?
No, actually, it would be where we would store a big, more comprehensive list. So I could just remove that and say that our plans are to do a more thorough inventory in the future year.
Yeah, and that's a great idea.
Okay.
But we know that ash trees could probably be added to that, huh?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, good point.
And we know that 7 ash trees.
One data point we have.
Would that be just ash, or is there a more formal way to describe those? American ash, or?
Are they green or white?
Right. Yeah, it could be green. We didn't get too deep into that. But maybe when we go by, we can try to determine if it's green or black. They told us most of Vermont is green ash.
Okay. Okay,
And
Kristen, I'm wondering how you felt this compared to the Memorial Park overview document.
in what way? Like,
Well, I mean, it's always very comprehensive. Did you find it, as in terms of the format, obviously you kind of adhere to the same sort of approach. Any major, things that kind of stuck out, but other than that, they're, obviously they're different areas, but I just was kind of curious into your observation of the two different
plan?
documents.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a more short and sweet plan, perhaps, because it's a smaller property, but also because there's a little fewer issues, maybe. I mean, because at Memorial Park, we have some considerable trail improvements to do and the issue of the bridge and so forth. So this was a little more short and sweet.
I see. Thank you.
Kristen, can I add one thing to the list of activities? So I know just from accidentally kind of stumbling upon it, but near the picnic bench on like the far side of the park is a geocache location.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, so we should add that as well.
Geocaching.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That it doesn't tip off any searchers.
Correct. Yeah, because we're not telling them where. It's just that we do it there. Or somebody does it there. I didn't put it there. I just found it one day. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Excellent.
That's cool.
Good to know. Okay. So if I make that little change about the trees and I figure out when the sign went in, is it reasonable to say we could, and I'll fill in what these numbers are too. Should we forward it to the select board at this time?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if we need a formal vote on that or anything. Do we?
I make a motion that we leave it to Kristen's discretion as she completes the few items
Okay.
that need to be finished.
Was that a real motion? Should I ask for a second?
I second that motion. It was a motion.
Okay. All in favor? Or any discussion, I should say. Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I will make those edits and then forward it on to Valerie for the select board's review.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
Thank you.
We kind of on that same subject. What's the next plan we would like to tackle? And this could include, gosh, okay. It could include the town green, the coffin factory property, the Shattuck picnic area along Route 116. What else, Alex? What other parks do we have?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Saunders
Oh, yeah,
River
Saunders.
Access.
We kind of put Saunders at the end because it has an interim management plan for its easement.
Mm-hmm.
And we could revisit Sycamore because that plan was done more than 5 years ago and a lot has changed at the park. Among all of those, is there a priority, a greater priority of one of those over the others that y'all would?
I would promote that Sycamore, revisiting that, because if you go on the basis of the highest volume of use,
Yeah.
that and that it's listed in town documents for visitors and so on. I think that is really the one to focus on,
Okay.
on at the top and priority of the ones you mentioned.
That makes good sense to me. Alex, do you count Lord's Prayer Rock as a town park?
Yeah, that's kind of like an in-between. I do check it, sort of on my list of places to check. But I don't do any like active management of that area besides just kind of keeping an eye on it. But maybe that could be included as well.
Sounds good. But first, maybe the next one we tackle is Sycamore.
I think that would be a good plan. So since we have something to go off of with the former plan and now having some new plan experience, I think that would go well.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll do that. I'll start on that and bring it in front of this group either next meeting or the meeting after. Okay, memorial plan, Eagle plan. Okay, discussing the annual calendar is next. And let me paste into the chat a link to that Google Doc. So that's just popped over now. We have several items already on here. Are there additional items that we want to put on our annual calendar? And again, this is a kind of a working document to help us remember to do certain tasks at certain times of the year. So it's meant mostly for recurring tasks, but we can also put, non-recurring tasks in there. One item should be the Eagle Park Mulch and Garden Day. Is there a particular time, or typically we do that in March around Green Up Day, but is there a particular Saturday or Sunday that would work for folks to do mulching and repair of the access ramp?
Did you mean in May around Green Up Day, not March?
I did mean in May, thank you.
Yeah. Given that May 7th is Green Up Day and May 14th, we're doing Sycamore Park.
Right.
I don't think it's going to take very long. I think what you're describing will take maybe an hour for 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, a couple hours, I would
Okay.
say. Typically what it takes us, it's what it took us last year to do just the mulch.
Yeah, do we want to spread them out? I mean, last year we did it on the 1st
Of May.
Yeah, but actually, yeah, no, I won't be in town then, so I'm suggesting a day that I couldn't be there. That's not very helpful. So do we want to couple it with a different event? I guess the 8th is Mother's Day. That probably won't work for a lot of people.
Right, good point.
But like, yeah, and then making it the 15th would make that a big weekend, which maybe would make it harder for people to make it to both.
Mm-hmm.
So that would leave the 21st or the 22nd, right?
Or April 30th.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of consecutive Saturdays.
Alex and I wouldn't be able to make it to the 30th. We're out of town for a wedding, but
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Well, yeah, actually, the jobs that need to be done don't have to be done in the spring or early summer. They can be done in June and July, right?
Except for the mulch at the perennial garden, it is handy to get that mulch on before the weeds start to grow.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'd like to suggest, looking that April doesn't have anything at the moment, would it be feasible to move Sycamore Park? And I'm just thinking topographically here that you have Eagle and Memorial a little bit higher up and Sycamore's a little lower, and maybe, late April it would work. So then therefore May wasn't as busy as it is currently. And we put something into, middle to late April, and Sycamore being the one to move.
Oh, okay. And
Well, we know that Zaley and Alex can't do the 30th, can't do the end of April, and we're bumping up against currently,
Well,
Well,
this
there's
is going,
the
this would be
23rd,
going forward. It might not be that we, this is actualized for this year, but
Got
going
it.
forward.
Sorry, you're right. You're just talking in general.
so
Yeah.
2023,
Got it.
we could do a late April at Sycamore, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty substantial day, the way Alex has it outlined at this point. And I think, when I look at, we're dealing with rain, right? April showers, spring, May flowers. But if we have maybe 2 dates, as a backup, then or rain date, then we shoot for the middle and then go to the end of April, two weekends in there, and hopefully get one of them.
Right. And maybe that's more in line with when the apple trees need to be pruned. Maybe? Or is that always March?
Well, the pruning is up earlier. You have it under March,
Yeah.
and ideally that could really even be February. It gives the trees a chance to heal up a little bit, but we had to decide on that, I think, and
Yeah.
Helen and I were able to get to it. I think we committed to it on the February meeting, and then Helen and I found a time that worked in March. So we could move that to February and again, weather cooperating.
Okay.
And Alex, I think we agree, Jono, that we did such a thorough job pruning this year that it might not need anything next year. We might have done 2 years worth. We'll see. It might not be an annual occurrence.
Got it.
Yeah, I would revise that statement a little bit, in that water spouts occur on an annual basis, but that work is much lighter than what I think Helen and I accomplished. So the bulk of the work, it was done to get things back to a good sort of maintenance level. But I think the water spouts occur, every year. That's what the tree does. And so you have to kind of stay on top of those each year, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I popped it in there as a possibility for February in the next year. Other items for this annual calendar? And we still have to I suppose we could outline the tasks that need to be done at Eagle Park, and we wouldn't necessarily have to all congregate on one day. We could chip away at some of these tasks when we each have time or an availability. Because weeding is pretty straightforward. Tackling the Japanese knotweed is pretty straightforward. Digging up sycamore, sumac is kind of a as you go thing. Since we already have quite a few commitments in May, maybe we could just keep in touch over email about those tasks that are needed at Eagle Park.
Is it too late to put Eagle Park, given this year, into June?
It's not too late, no.
The reason I suggest that is because I found it really wonderful last year, someone has a bonding experience to get to know fellow members and past members when we were all there. Dave was there. And I just think the camaraderie of that is really very valuable. If we can coordinate, a single visit versus, when it fits. I know I wouldn't be as charged up to go up there on my own personally. Whereas when I'm going to be working with everybody else, I feel like that's really a joyous time.
Sure. Yep, we could plan for a time in June. Like early June, maybe, how about 4th, June 4th or 5th, that Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, I think that's manageable if you're going at a minimum 2 or 3 weeks apart from any other, larger work day, then I think that gives a chance for people to recuperate.
Right. I will send out some reminders over email. And we'll revisit that also during the May Conservation Commission meeting. But for now, let's plan on maybe June 4th or 5th of that weekend.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay,
So if we're creating a checklist of annual tasks, actually June we're doing Eagle Park, aren't we?
Okay. Yes, we are.
Yeah. Are the two parks that are likely to need annual care Eagle Park and Sycamore Park?
Yes.
Okay, so they should be in here as, annual events. So if June, we can do Eagle Park, and sometime in May, we can do Sycamore, we're done. And then we're adding a March apple pruning event.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Cool.
I think what's confusing about this table is we have this year's dates and then proposed future dates.
Yeah.
But it's there. They're labeled, so you just have to pay attention.
Well, essentially, if it goes March, which was the apple, April, which was vacant, and then May, which is kind of where things stand for this year, we could change that to go February, March, and then essentially April, and maybe not go into June. But the 3 months in succession, I think, work pretty well. I noticed that August all the way through December is pretty darn wide open. I just was trying to think of what might be spread into there, but
what can we defer? Maybe deferred maintenance into fall. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just to keep us on track, because we still have a few more things to cover tonight. We can always revisit this again next May and tweak it each month, I would say.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, we do have quite a few items here.
Yeah.
Operating budget. We still should have about 250 in there. Carolyn was not able to get an answer from the town because this is such a very busy time for them with taxing and accountants and things like that. But there's probably about 250 in their operating budget. We still need some ideas for spending that down. And maybe it's materials for the Sycamore Park workday.
Can you get the screen back to all of our faces, please?
Oh, I thought that it was.
I have it here.
Oh, sorry. It's because I've just opened. Never mind. I just have the Google document open.
Are you good? Okay.
Got it. There you are. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so if there are any thoughts about how to spend down the operating budget, maybe email those to Carolyn or speak up now.
So some substantial metal poles for the pollinator garden,
Okay.
at least 8 and maybe 12 or more. And, those aren't cheap. So I would do those. And then, Jono, when we were out there, we were looking at the fencing. And I think one of them, they have different kinds of fencing for the two pollinator gardens, and one of them looks like it's survived winter better than the other.
Yeah, my
don't remember.
recollection was one was sort of a chicken wire, which that doesn't hold up for that purpose that well, and the other was something that was more sturdy.
Yeah,
I
the
can't-
other option that you're mentioning is like a coated wire. It's like green coated wire.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That I think that was the primary or that was the goal, to do both with that, and then they ran out or whatnot. So another roll or two to eventually replace, so that they're both consistent, and yeah, that might be good.
And I mean, if we're going to do that during the Sycamore Park cleanup, should we just go buy those? I mean, who does this?
Any one of us can go and buy them, and like at Martin's, and then you put it on the town's account.
Ooh, you shouldn't have told me that.
And then the paperwork that you receive, just mark on their Conservation Commission operating budget and bring a copy of that into Sharon. I think that would more or less work. So do we have a volunteer that would like to purchase the materials, less than, probably keeping the budget to less than 200? And that's if we all agree. Suppose we should have a vote about this as well.
If that's how we should spend the money.
Right.
Well, before we do that, I know Alex probably has a pretty good handle of various needs of the parks, so I would kind of defer to him if that's a high enough priority. And then number two, I also wanted to hark back to the list that we were just on, the Google document, that at one point we talked about generating a list, so we didn't just have things that kind of came up, but things that could be planned on and things that might be every other year or so on. I just wonder if we could add that to that Google document, a list of, since it's all in one place, of fund or expenditures, fund expenditures.
I like that idea. And I'll add a new part to that document right now. Possible funding, possible uses for annual operating budget.
Great. Thank you.
So sturdy fence posts for Sycamore pollinator garden.
I'm just thinking about how that project originated. Did it come from Porter and her having an intern and deciding that that was something that they thought would be a good place to do it? And then now it's sort of in our lap. Is that sort of the rough?
Well, it becomes an amendment to the town, not an amendment, but a thing at the town park, and we're one of the entities that helps to manage that town park. So
it was an addition, sort of like the apple trees at one point way long ago, and then now we become the stewards to prune the apple trees and oversee the pollinator garden. Who knows what's next? Okay, I'm just trying to get a handle on that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the procedure. So she came and Jenny was the intern's name, who came and had the proposal, and came and visited the site. And I think at one point she was like on like speakerphone with us when we were sitting in the little pavilion area. So yeah, I think from my perspective, a lot of the boxes were checked as far as how this type of thing should go in the future. And it, like I think the Conservation Commission ends up inheriting a project after a year and then continues it, the next step, kind of takes the torch and runs with it the rest of the way. But yeah, that's the rough version of it. Yeah.
Alex, if you think that we might be leaning towards that, if it meets your kind of criteria for priority, then another angle on it is there's always the potential for vandalism, because that stuff kind of, anything from an intentional act or somebody just mountain biking and going into it. So I think it needs to be sturdy enough. And it also could be that somebody just decides, oh, I like that fence. It would be great over my garden. So something that's solid enough that it's there for a good period of time. So we're not replacing it continually, because that's, wasted money, but probably not so over material, the materials such that it's beyond what we really need to serve the purpose.
Right.
So it sounds like that coated wire, which we saw, what Helen and I saw, was pretty sturdy, and that might be the ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the thought with that was mainly to protect the new plants from getting browsed on by deer, and the eventual goal or the sort of vision was similar to the annual, the perennial garden at Eagle, which is really nice and doesn't need a fence at this point. Everything is really strong and healthy. So that's ideally what it would look like in the future. I don't know if Jenny thought about it that far ahead. Yeah.
So just mulch from that point on after removing the fence.
Right. Once the plants are really good and solid after a few years, then ideally it's just another, just mulch it every year and let it grow. So one last thing.
Well, I think I interrupted. I guess we're back to the decision if that's the direction to go in, and if so, who might be willing to pick up the fence material role?
Happy to do that. I think I need to know what it's called. What should maybe I'll just go out and look at it again at Sycamore Park and then go to Martin's specifically. Okay. And then the corner posts, I'll just do the same thing. I'll just estimate approximately what's ideal and then what we can afford. And I'll just pare it down until those two numbers match.
That would be great. Thank you.
And have it available at Sycamore Park for the day we're working there. Right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say under 200, because we have to leave about 500 to pay the annual dues for the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions.
50.
You mean $50?
We pay them
You
about.
had said 500.
Sorry, 50. I get up wicked early, and so by this time of the day, my brain just starts to shut down.
Okay.
I meant $50.
I had a feeling. I had it yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Okay, thank you. So next item is updated wildlife survey. And this is kind of a new topic because it has come out of the discussions that have been brought to us by members of the public in the last couple of meetings. One item that we identified that we could do as a conservation commission in service to the town, the community here, we recognize that the wildlife crossing information that is present in the town plan and referenced in the town plan is quite a bit out of date and could be updated because of development patterns in the town. We expect that wildlife crossing locations are changing, and the main routes that wildlife use to traverse this town are probably changing.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of grants identified by members of the public at our last meeting, and one of them had a due date of April 8th. Is that right, Zaley?
Yeah.
And I mistakenly looked at the calendar last time thinking that we would have a Conservation Commission meeting the day before the 8th, but it's actually the week after the 8th. So we were not able to meet as a commission to approve a grant application to meet that April 8th deadline. But those were tiny grants from the VACC, the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions, on the order of a few $100s, which could be useful to purchase equipment. But I also felt like we needed to have a discussion as a commission first to really identify what our goals were. And if our goal is something like update the wildlife tracking maps for the town of Bristol, that's a far different scope of work than simply supporting citizen science for identifying wildlife in the town. So maybe we could have a short discussion about what we think our goals would want to be going forward, and then we can identify the grant sources that would appropriately match that scope of work. So anything you'd like to add, Zaley?
No, I think that covers that part, but I do think I think that would be a worthwhile goal.
To update the maps.
Yeah, and I don't know how we go about that, but I,
Yeah,
How were the data collected originally to make those maps?
originally those maps were generated by Lewis Creek Association, and they had a much more comprehensive study that was done. They invited folks in like Sue Morse to do to teach wildlife tracking to citizens in the 5 or 7 towns that comprise the Lewis Creek watershed. And they generated the mapping, and then that mapping was translated for the individual towns by Regional Planning Commission. But that was, back in the early 2000s, I think. So
would it be worth contacting them and seeing if they want to work together on this, or should we just kind of go for it ourselves?
That's a good idea. Yeah, we could do that for sure, to see if they wanted to update that mapping and work collaboratively with us on that. I did also reach out to a few people. Williston has recently updated their maps, and they said that they hired a consultant to do that with some grant funding. But that also involves some citizen science as well. So there's that route as well. We could go that route as a town and just secure grant funding to hire a consultant to kind of steer that process, or we could collaborate with like the Lewis Creek Association, a watershed group, to gather citizens to collect this data, and work also with the Regional Planning Commission to do the mapping, which might save us a little bit of grant monies.
It seems like to do a good, thorough job would be incredibly difficult. I assume that the goal is to look at where all the roads are and try to determine, if it's wildlife crossing, you're determining who's using those roads, right, to cross. And we're identifying areas that there's a lot of wildlife versus not a lot of wildlife. Is that true? Is that what?
Well,
I haven't seen the map.
I think we're identifying common crossing locations as one element of this overall effort, but also identifying corridors that they travel among. And that's what a consultant can help with, because they have a lot of that information already.
It seems to me that there's a few different levels. The first one is your baseline, where, as you say, the knowledgeable people like Sue Morse and so on, they establish those corridors and so on. Then your next level is probably the citizen scientist kind of anecdotally saying, yeah, we see a lot of turkeys crossing back and forth here or whatever. I also noticed something on the New Haven Front Porch Forum requesting send in your observations of wildlife. But that was a general, wildlife kind of in your backyard, not related to crossing. So I wonder if that's the third component is overall abundance of levels of wildlife. I know the Audubon does a pretty good job with Randy, who used to be on this commission, asking for help to do the Christmas bird count surveys.
Yeah.
As an example.
Exactly.
And that's a good 20 plus year history where they can start to see trends, and that's very valuable. So I don't know. It sounds like you have a good familiarity with the process, Kristen.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to work as part of a subcommittee to kind of gather more information and bring it back to this commission for the next meeting with maybe some options for us to think about.
Can I ask, is that in our purview? Is that part of our charge? Because that seems you're covering a lot more territory. You're covering areas that have no parks.
No, it is part of our purview to think about the wildlife resources of the town and support the collection of data and so forth. We can certainly guide that process and secure the grants that could do that. For example, we got grant funding to map the bedrock and superficial geology of the town as a resource layer for the town, essentially. And I think of this as just another resource layer of the town.
Right, right.
And typically that involves grant funding to hire consultants to help coordinate that process, and could involve as much public outreach as we want, or citizen science as we want, or as little as we want. But I think it could be a fun activity for a lot of families and a lot of citizens in town. So I'd be in favor of incorporating some citizen science as part of that.
Right. I think my concern about, maybe we're spending too much time on this. Would you like to work together to develop some kind of proposal for the next meeting? And we can talk about this in more detail.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is we could just reach out to our networks and understand how other towns have done it and come back to the group with a couple of different plans.
I'm happy to write the Lewis Creek Association. I've been in touch with them a lot in the last year. So I'm happy to write them and just see if that's something that's sort of in their zone of interest or not. And then bring that information back.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
So we can plan to have this as an item on next month's agenda again, and we'll have hopefully some more concrete things to share and talk about. Okay. Cool. Edith Stock Trust. This is on the agenda to discuss and brainstorm best uses of the funds that have been entrusted to the Conservation Commission now that the Edith Stock Trust has been disbanded as of a year ago or so. The notes here from Carolyn indicate that we still don't know the value, the number of dollars in the fund because they're so busy right now with taxes and accounting and so forth. My suggestion to the commission would be that we table this until next meeting once we have an idea of what that number is.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my recollection was somewhere in the $2,000 range.
Yeah, but it would be good to get the concrete number and then we can brainstorm next time. Next item is the library spring project. Nancy, did you want to share some information about that?
Yeah. So it's just a wall in the children's room that Marita has put up, that we put up for I think mostly kids and teens, but anyone is welcome to bring drawings or pictures of plants or animals they see around town to add. I think she said they did it several years ago maybe, and it was pretty in depth with a map and pretty involved, it sounded like. But if any of you remember that, but yeah, this one's just a wall with the pictures on it so people can see what is around town.
Cool. And I did notice today on Front Porch Forum, or maybe it was yesterday, she put out a notice of inviting folks to bring their spring observations,
Yes.
photos, drawings, that kind of thing. Cool. Excellent. And there's a place to email submissions as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can, oh, sorry. You can email the pictures if you want, then they'll print them out for you if you don't have a printer or such.
Okay. Okay, cool. Excellent. Anything more on that item from others? Okay. Illegal dumping sites. Typically Alex updates us here. Did he share anything with you, Zaylee?
Nope.
Okay. So we can table that until next time. The tree planting committee, updates from Alex M.
Yeah. I had a first kind of initial meeting where we talked with the leader of the Middlebury tree planting group. She shared a lot of sort of their project goals and how they went about their group. She shared that with the Bristol folks, which was really helpful. And they're willing to share again, like kind of their rough outline of a plan. And we were talking just before the meeting started that one of the first things the group is going to do is try to come up with a mission and come up with some goals and go from there. So that's going to happen in early May. That's when the next meeting is. And it's meant to be kind of like an ad hoc committee. So not formal or anything like that, and still kind of, it's still fairly new and fresh. So if anybody is interested or wants to learn more, we're sort of envisioning two types of sort of community involvement. One level being like you really are into it and want to be a part of the monthly meetings. You want to be involved in writing grants, you want to be involved in, planning and stuff like that, or do you just want to like help neighbors plant trees physically, or do you want to help maintain trees, like water trees for the first couple of years or something like that. So we're anticipating those kind of two levels of participation. And yeah, if you know of anybody who's interested, feel free to pass along my email. And yeah, hopefully we're able to get a little bit of this figured out, and then there can be sort of a public, I don't know, unveiling of the group. So yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Questions for Alex on that? Other thoughts? Do you need an official liaison from this commission to that committee, or just kind of, as you mentioned, it's really just an ad hoc?
Yeah, I think going along with the model of the Middlebury group, there really isn't like a required amount of input from each sort of, each of the stakeholders in the town. But it's a pretty straightforward connection, right, between Bristol conservation people and Bristol tree planting people. So I think it might still be valuable to keep those two groups somewhat connected by just giving quick updates at these meetings. And I plan on still being on it, so I can kind of be the only, like, the liaison anyway. So that might work out easily. Yeah, but it's kind of like open invitation, really. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll keep it on the agenda just to maintain that connection, I think.
Cool.
Excellent. Helen, ARPA committee, do you have an update for us?
I do not. We've met again and delegated responsibilities, but yeah, there's nothing to report.
Okay, that's short and sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Jono and or Helen, the Bristol Climate Change Forum from yesterday, I understand you at the last minute couldn't make it, Jono?
Yeah, that's right. I had a abscess tooth, well, about a day and a half ago, which just really took off, and was able to get up to the office in Williston, and thankfully, with the procedure I won't go into the details of, it's resolved and I'm taking an antibiotic and things are getting back to normal. But what I did do, as a result, I did miss the meeting. I took a nap. I was just a little zonked and did not pay attention to the rest of the day. So what I did do was in the morning today, I emailed Linda Andrews, who seemed to be coordinating the forum, with the notes that you had provided and just some brief sense of what I thought the commission was doing. And she was going to forward that on. And then Helen may have some more because thankfully she was in attendance of the meeting and can fill us in further.
No, I don't have anything to add to it. So I did attend the meeting, and about halfway through, they were saying, I wonder where Jono is. And I wonder if he's going to come. And we were trying to call you. And finally I said, I'm a member of the Conservation Commission. I can report for them. And they said, okay, we'll put you, further down. They had other commissions that needed to report. And by 8:30, they still had not gotten to me. And I had been on there for an hour and a half. And I wrote them in the chat, a very brief outline of what was in your email, Kristen, about riparian zones and maintaining green spaces, and said, good luck. So your email today, Jono, was perfect because I really filled in a lot. I just gave them a skeletal outline and then you filled it in. So I feel as though we were represented, although quite awkwardly.
Well, so I'm curious, what did you think of how the meeting, what the overview was and their focus?
Well, they were interested in how each of these committees is addressing climate change. And so the Energy Committee had a lot to talk about.
Sure.
This was, I just forgot her name, Burrell. Sarah?
Sally.
Burrell. She gave a very thorough, detailed description of the different things they have been doing over the years to try to increase energy efficiency and decrease fossil fuel use. And it was really quite good. Kevin Hansen, I think is his name, represented the Planning Commission. And this is being recorded, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'll just say that it was very detailed and long. So by the time there was time, well, and then there was just a lot of discussion between each of these, asking questions about each element of the Energy Commission's report. So there was a lot of chatting, and Linda wrote this morning that a good thing that came out of that meeting is that they did chat a lot and formed little liaisons and are taking on subsets of assignments to continue use to try to assess what Bristol is doing to ameliorate climate change. So
Great.
Do you think they would have another session, or is that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Cool. Well, thanks for representing us, but
kind of in face only.
well, and for forwarding on that information, John, too. Yeah, at least it got in the record.
Yeah. Thanks for helping with providing some background.
Yeah.
Historical history. Historical memory.
Historical history. Time for a nap.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. One last item. Green Up Day, May 7th. Carolyn reports that she has all the stuff. The bags are ready to distribute to Bristol Elementary. 30 bags will go there. 20 bags will go to Red Cedar. And then she has extras for the library and Holly Hall. It's still planning on being a fully socially distanced event. So people will just pick up their bags and do their thing and set the bags out on the roadside for the road crews to pick up on the Monday. Alex put up posters already, right? Sounds like.
Yep.
And the road crew is prepared to do their normal pickup. So I think everything's well organized, well in hand. And I've seen some Front Porch Forum posts by Carolyn announcing things. So that seems like it's all organized. Any other questions or thoughts?
No, just that bags available to pick up at Holly Hall the week, like 1 week before the event, starting 1 week before the event. So in case anybody asks, please don't send them over 3 weeks before the event. So,
But 1 week before. Okay.
right. And to be clear, Holly Hall meaning the big porch, sort of the main entrance, and it'll be outside. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Super. And then, so we don't have any plans as a commission to be together on that day to do any of the parks or anything, but we can each individually chip in where we want to chip in, I think. Okay. Next meeting, May 12th, is going to be outdoors at the pavilion near the hub. There will not be a Zoom link available at that meeting. So as long as everyone still agrees, that's a good plan. They feel comfortable with that plan. That's what we'll do, is have an outdoor meeting at the hub, and then maybe we can get Dave Rosen to join us as well. Thoughts, concerns about that?
I'm excited to meet you guys.
I know.
Ditto.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be in person again.
3 dimensions. That'll be fun. Okay. Well, if there are no other items, I think I will accept or look for a motion to adjourn.
All motion.
Okay. And
Second.
second. Excellent. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that's it.
Thank you, Kristen.
There we go. Thank you all for joining.
And thank you, Zaylee.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you,
sticking
everyone.
around.
Yeah.